Shame and guilt. We all have experienced them at some point. They are normal and necessary for all of us to survive in the world. But these emotions can sometimes become toxic and lead to emotional distress and a poor sense of self. Is there something that you can do to deal with inappropriate shame and guilt? This is what we will speak about. So I don't know. What do you think? Is this true? Do we need shame and guilt?
Is shame ever appropriate?
No. Shame, I disagree with the opening statement that shame and guilt are necessary to survive. Yeah. Shame actually is incredibly detrimental at times, especially when you're in the adolescent stage. It's very detrimental, so I don't think they're necessary.
Well, it's true that it can be detrimental, and that's what we said. Toxic shame. Is detrimental.
But what I'm saying is this toxic even belong in the...
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
the toxic one.
A role of appropriate
I really
shame.
think that shame happens. So it's normal because it happens to
everyone.
all of us.
Exactly.
But you don't have to experience shame to survive.
I agree with you. And I can tell you this. I went through shame and guilt throughout my life. Most of us have. I'm going to tell you exactly how I felt as a 16-year-old kid. I grew up in boarding school. I was the child of divorced parents, and I didn't really fit the mold because the majority, not the majority, but a great part of those students were children of pastors, and mom and dad were together. And here I am, child of a divorce. And so I was not really a candidate to be dating the popular guy in school because I was out of the conforms, right? So I was very popular with the music and very talkative.
You talkative?
Yeah, very talkative.
I don't know about that.
Sorry to break that to you. But I felt shamed because my parents were divorced. And when my boyfriend said, I'm not so sure if I should tell my parents that I'm dating you because your parents are divorced. He said that. So here I am, very embarrassed already. And he says that. So we have this huge thing going on with with the choir going to a trip. Yeah, like a field
Choir fest or something.
Choir fest, and we went on this trip. And the father of this boyfriend,
he knew that you were dating him
and
you were coming from divorced parents.
So he was congratulating every choir singer. Yeah, so he congratulated the one in front of me. Yeah. He jumped me and congratulated the one behind me. Yes. So my face was probably
red as your shirt.
I was angry.
That's terrible.
I was ashamed, but that was the point that I said, I will take this no more. And I became very angry. From then on, I have, lost that thing. I'm not going to experience this shame.
Here's where I say the shame thing is hard to interject as a necessary tool for growth. It didn't help her. Shame didn't help her.
Exactly.
It's when you got embarrassed or when someone was rude to you, rather, not embarrassed, but when the guy was rude to you, where you became I'm every woman.
Let
and you
me
were
tell you something that perhaps will help answer why we have this difference here. Shame and guilt are seen through the eyes and the filters of culture. So in the Western culture, where we are right now, it's not so much, shame is seen as a bad thing, right? And guilt is really, either you're guilty or innocent. That's more kind of like what this culture focuses on. In other cultures, for them, sometimes shame is almost like a necessary thing. If you don't have it, you really are not able to survive and cope and improve in your life.
Well, to the point
they kind of mix the shame and guilt into one thing.
Yeah, to the point that Japanese and the Japanese culture, they kill themselves if they have something that makes them shameful.
That brings shame.
They bring shame to the family. Yeah, they go and kill themselves.
In that
culture. But I also experienced guilt because I had done something in boarding school again, and I knew, that I was wrong, and I was called along with a few more other kids in front of the whole school to apologize to the person who we had wronged. At the time, I was embarrassed. I felt guilty. But it was true. While we had a witness, it was true.
Okay, and that's where guilt comes into play, because guilt goes after, that's where your conscience comes in, right?
Right.
You feel like, man, that wasn't the right thing to do, and it kind of steers you. That I get. That can have a positive impact
That
on someone's
actually
life.
can be positive.
Feeling ashamed because of something you have no control over.
Totally, yeah.
You don't have control over the fact that your parents divorced. That is not even yours to carry.
Right.
However,
yet the guy put it on you like it was
Like
The
it was
pastor.
yours.
That's
The
shame.
pastor.
Right.
Shame.
But
That's
yeah.
not right.
But you know what? Something good came out of it. Now she's strong. Like she was like, okay.
For me, it did.
See, the thing
There's
is,
a lot of women.
No,
that
it's
wear
because a
that
lot of
down
women.
by that.
yes.
It's
Right.
because the guy was rude to her and she turned into I'm every woman.
Yeah, but
That's
what if people who continuously are being shamed by people who should know
the
better?
problem comes
Yeah.
when the person starts to internalize whatever it is that happened.
That's
like
true.
for you was this. It could
Yeah.
have been a mistake somebody made in front of other people, and then they start to say, "Well, I'm a failure. I am bad because this happened. I must have no value because this happened." And then they internalize that behavior as their identity. And so that's where the negative impact or the toxic shame comes on, where versus, okay, I feel I did something wrong, or in your case, I did something at boarding school that I'm not proud of, but that wasn't me. That was a behavior, it was a choice, and it didn't really,
But even
describe who I
guilt,
was.
how useful is this feeling of being feeling guilty all the time? Yeah, I did something wrong. I will, step up the plate and I'll go on and I'll do better. Feeling guilty, because of past things.
You're bringing up what we call an inappropriate guilt, toxic guilt. So that means you can have positive guilt that moves you, and maybe toxic guilt. If you're like guilty all the time, that can increase your chances for depression.
Right. Now, I
other kinds
think
of things.
guilt is actually a healthy thing. If you did something wrong or inappropriate and you feel guilty about it, that's actually healthy.
Unless you
can
feel it, you
realize
can't
and
change.
process that
It shouldn't
you did
linger,
something
though.
inappropriate.
Yeah, it
no,
shouldn't linger.
It's
That's
just
the trick.
It's just a point of saying, oh, okay, red flag. This
Right.
is where I went wrong, or what have you.
Recognition.
But when stuff
Right.
lingers, that's when it becomes a problem.
That's
But
right.
we're really talking about shame.
Yeah, exactly.
We're really
Shame
talking
is what
about
stays
Let me tell
with
you this. Well, we have somebody here who will help us answer this question. Dr. Julian Melgoza is a psychologist, an educator, and an author. And Dr. Melgoza, we were very happy you're here with us today. You heard our discussion. What do you think? Do we need shame and or guilt to survive in this world?
Well, we need to survive. Therefore, yes, we do need them. They are not producing good feeling because, they hurt. But, yes, they are needed.
And do you think, why is it that they are such strong emotions across cultures?
Well, I think they touch our inner self. Any dissonance that is in us is going to be shared, reflected on feeling, and that feeling is going to be shame or is going to be guilt. To me, guilt is coming from inside your own conscience, whereas shame is coming from the judgment of others on you.
So, like when you say internal, it's kind of your self-talk. You're talking to yourself, and I should not have done that, or and kind of
Correct.
like
You are comparing your own perception with your standards, and when there is dissonance there, then you feel guilty.
I see. And shame, no, it's other people that create that emotion on you.
Right. And shame is more difficult to deal with because it just has to please you and others. Guilt
just
is
not
against
about
your
you.
own principles.
Well, we have a lot of more questions for Dr. Melgoza, but we do need to go to a break. So stick around. We'll be right back. We are speaking up about emotions of shame and guilt, and Dr. Julian Melgoza is helping us. Dr. Melgoza, can you tell our group here, we had a very hot discussion over there about the difference between shame and guilt, whether guilt is something good that we need or not. What do you say?
Well, shame and guilt may feel similar, but they are different in the sense that shame is coming from outside. Your culture, your family, your setting is blaming you. That is shame. Guilt is when your conscience is telling you not to do something, you do it, you feel that guilt. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, it depends on the
what?
situation.
What does it depend on?
Well,
when is it good? Like, give us a picture scenario of good shame or good guilt.
I am a faith person, and I believe in the Bible, and the Bible has a clear standard, and if I transgress those standards, I am supposed to feel guilty. It's just part of the way the Lord has made us. That guilt must be a motivation to reform, to do things, to take care of things.
But Dr. Magosa, how about, sorry to cut you off, because that's what I felt when I was growing up back in the Philippines. Our shame and guilt kind of relates to each other, but more so guilt because the drive is on the religion. Right. And they said, I was an Adventist already at that time, and they said, well, if you travel on Saturday, oh boy, you're going to get an accident because Sabbath is supposed to be...
You'll be punished.
You'll be punished. You have to be in church. So is that a good thing? I mean...
Well, I don't think it's a very good thing. I think it's a way to teach a principle, but it's not the ideal. I don't think the Lord is there waiting for you to do something wrong so that you get punished.
Right.
But having the sense that you are perhaps not doing something right is a good thing to lead your behavior. But answering the question of when is bad, well, we see children that feel guilty because their parents get divorced. Right. They feel responsible. They have a burden of guilt, and that can go for years. There are survivors from accidents or from a Holocaust that feel guilty because others died
and they survived.
Like in the wars, Vietnam Wars.
Those are the problems that end up in a counseling session and treatment because people have the wrong kind of guilt.
So it's unfounded. It's really not their fault at all. But because of the circumstance, they may be led to believe that it is, and if they believe it, what kinds of consequences
there must be something that is driving people to feel this shame, even though it's unfounded. Okay, so I'm thinking about based on my own experience.
We talked about guilt, though, not shame.
Right.
Guilt.
My own experience. I knew I had done something wrong, but should have I was a teenager. Should have the leaders of the time exposed me in front of the whole school, saying guilty, 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 like I had the big letter A right here. Right. I mean, is that the way we should deal with that kind of thing?
I don't think so. Developmental psychology states very clearly when are the right times to do the right things. You could do something like that. It's not my style, but you could do it without, being afraid of a big thing. Right. On little children, for example. Teenagers are not ready for that.
Especially in front of other peers, because for the teenage years, they want the respect of their peers.
Exactly.
So this is really shaming.
It is shaming.
So it's important then to teach lessons, especially when someone's a child, in ways that doesn't bring on shame. So if there was this big thing on YouTube a couple years ago where a young man would do something wrong, and then the father would take the young man on YouTube and shave off his hair. Or cut his hairstyle into something that wasn't popular.
It to everyone
and then post it to everyone because the young man did something that was inappropriate. I don't think that really brings on something healthy. That probably brings on shame. So I think that's where we have to be careful with how we're disciplining, in your case, at the boarding school, how we're disciplining someone. Are we teaching the lesson, or are we bringing on shame?
Right. And we have to be very careful. Personality-wise, there are people who are more guilt-prone, and there are people who are more sensitive to feel shame. And that is an individual difference.
Is that a personality or a temperament kind of thing?
That's a personality. In fact, there is one of the factors of the 16PF, the famous personality test, that deals with this. And personality is believed to be pretty rigid in terms of, we inherit some kind of personality, and we can change, but, there is a lot of it that we have. And guilt is one of those things that vary across people.
How can we know that we are going through this inappropriate guilt? Like the child you cited, maybe they don't know, but how about an adult? I mean, this can also happen among adults. So how can we say, is this real appropriate guilt, or this is a toxic kind of guilt that it's not really my fault?
Well, I think sometimes you need someone to help you with that. But a good question is, have I violated any law or any principle that is internalized by me? If I conclude that it's not, but still this feeling is here bothering me, then I need to talk to someone. I need to maybe find a good friend that, we can talk, or a professional counselor that will take us through the steps of getting rid of that unfounded guilt.
How about shame? How can we overcome? Like Jusara, she shared an experience that, she carries to this day, she remembers. Is there something that we can do to overcome experiences that have been shaming to us?
Yeah,
maybe there's
unfairly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you have to say shame on you, the one who's Sometimes psychologists use techniques that are diminishing the other that has, being aggressive to you. You just start imagining little with a big head, big foot, and then you start making a little bit of fun about that because you have to take humor out.
So, Erica, you does that resound with you? Because you're talking to the girls, and also Ella, but you specifically talk to the teen girls a lot about this topic here. How do you?
I love that.
Do you like that? You can use that example.
I'm going to be using that very soon.
Yeah. What about gender? Do you see a difference between women and men? And especially when it comes to shame, because it seems to us that women are always feeling this shameful feeling.
I have read, I must confess, not recent studies, but years back, I have read that there are gender differences in guilt proneness. Women tend to feel guiltier than men for the same thing. So there is something I don't know that is significant.
Women tend to be the caretakers.
Yeah,
they want to take on their default
and
of their children doing certain things.
It doesn't just hit us and pass. We hold on,
internalize
it.
We're
emotional.
So we have to be careful.
We cannot conclude that this is because of being a woman, but because of how society has been expecting the behavior of women. You are supposed to be the carer, you are supposed to be the sweet one, and then I just didn't do it right. Oh, shame on me.
So I didn't conform with what society expected from me. Yeah, because I have to correct you there. I don't carry this. That episode made me angry. So that made me strong. Some people are not able to overcome.
But you don't carry resentment, right? Because, see, the resentment is what actually builds up on the shame.
Not the resentment with the person himself, but I had the resentment towards leaders who are still doing it.
Would you say that people that are guilt-prone in this way, in toxic way, or shame-prone in a toxic way, have worse outcomes when it comes to depression, to mental health issues?
Yes, definitely. I mean, all mental illnesses have to do with emotional states. If you have conditions or thoughts that are working against you, you are going to be more prone to, given the circumstances, and if you have the tendency to suffer depression, anxiety, or other common mental disorders because of this.
Thank you, Dr. Melgoza, for sharing this very important information with us today. For more information, visit our website, hopetv.org/speakup. There you can find more resources and download our SpeakUp notes on shame and guilt. We need to take a quick break, so be ready to write down our phone number, which we'll share with you right after the break. Stick around. We are speaking up about the emotions of shame and guilt. This was a very interesting discussion, wasn't it?
Yes,
I know there's still some different ideas about this, but what did we learn?
Oh, I liked it when he said, if somebody shames you, then tell them shame on you. Or picture that person to be like growing smaller and like the head is like getting bigger and you just have to put a needle and it pops.
That sounds so violent. But then again, the topic of shame and guilt can become violent.
But remember, the problem is if you do that, shaming, thinking bad about that other person and bad about yourself is not going to help. Because the problem with shame is when you say, oh, see, I'm worse. Now, of course, if you see yourself getting bigger and they're getting smaller, it means you're valuable, if that's what you're thinking.
I think that was just a metaphor.
Yeah.
But I have to say that if I might come across as being still angry about that episode, I want to make clear that I'm angry with the system that continues to support
the
person. It doesn't, you know, if I have a relationship with my Creator, that is totally besides the point. I will, and if the people watching us here know people who are in positions of leadership and are shaming other people,
call it what it is.
Yeah, call it like it is.
Kindly.
Yeah.
But, you know,
appropriately.
appropriately without shaming them.
Exactly.
But yeah, very important. We need to be advocates. You guys that work with the teens, you know this is a very important issue.
Yeah, and I want to mention, Novella, I know you deal with this all the time. I always talk to my girls about not even giving the opportunity to be shamed. And what I mean by that is, big thing today is, I want a picture. I want a video of you.
Social media,
right?
Yeah.
So they're taking these nude photos and sending it to these guys. And what I say is, guys, once it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands.
Yeah. Right.
He can do whatever he wants with it. And very often it's shared. Those guys never keep it to themselves. Don't even give them an opportunity.
There's a part of shame that we can control by not participating in things that could bring on a heavy shame.
That's it.
Yeah, because you make yourself vulnerable to something that you don't need to.
Right. You don't want to place certain moments in the hands of somebody else.
And let's be honest here. Sure. We are God's children. How dare you going to try to shame me for whatever reason?
Right.
My God does not do that. What makes you think that you can?
You can.
See, that is the beautiful thing about the differences between that and what is a healthy guilt, if you will.
Right.
Because as we discussed, you know, with the guilt piece, you say, I came short. I don't want to live like this. I didn't want to do this. And then you turn to God.
Guilt helps you repair.
Yeah,
you know, guilt helps you repair.
You turn to God, and then He's waiting for you with open arms and say, that's okay. Get up. I'll help you. You know, turn a page, and we'll start over again. And so that gives you hope. It's not like you're a bad person, but you did something you were not proud of, and you can leave that
and you know
behind.
what? You can stumble more than once.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes
Let's just give everybody...
We will stumble
more than once, and that's okay. You can get up every time, and He'll be there every time.
Amen.
Yeah, see, this is what really, I think, helps us to avoid the toxic shame. You know, we keep forgiveness in the proper perspective, and we seek God for that. And Noella, what do you think?
Well, the Word says a lot about it. You know, first of all, guilt and shame is something that could paralyze us. You know, even though we've talked about guilt on the show as being something that could be helpful, because it shows that we have a character, we have a mindset towards God. But if allowed, it could take us the direction of paralyzation, and we don't want that. But the Bible does say a lot about it. And
share with us.
Llewellyn, if you could share the scripture with us.
Our scripture is found in 1 John chapter 2, verse 1. I'm reading from the New International Version. It says, "My dear children, I write this to you so that you will not sin. But if anybody does sin, we have an advocate." Remember, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous one.
The key word is
Advocate. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like God created us, dropped us off here, and good luck to you, buddy.
And if you mess up, you're punished.
You're punished, right. You know, God did not do that to us. He says, hey, you're living in a sinful world. Don't worry about it. I'm here. Do your best. Make sure you listen to me. We're teammates. We're working together on this thing.
Amen.
Yes.
So if you fall, guess what? You could get back up because you have an advocate, somebody who's standing up with and for you.
Yeah, and sometimes we picture God far away, you know, and indeed He is. We believe now in a heavenly sanctuary advocating for us, but He's right here as well, and He helps us to be picked up.
That's right.
Sometimes it's too hard for us to do it on our own.
That actually reminds me of a song that I love so much, and it says, you know, when we ask God, how many times will you pick me up when I keep on letting you down? And each time I will fall short of your glory, how far will forgiveness abound? And this is what He says, my child, I love you. And as long as you're seeking my face, you'll walk in the power of my daily sufficient grace.
Amen.
So grace is enough for us to have hope that no matter what we do, you know, no matter what we face, God will always be there for us.
We have to remember, He came, He died, He gave His life
Amen.
for us.
Amen.
And so we are valuable. We learned today that toxic shame and unhealthy guilt are fairly common, and that they have a negative impact on our mental health, on our spiritual well-being. But there is hope. If you are feeling like a loser or beating yourself up for bad decisions, bad behavior, or if you're remembering some experience where someone shamed you, don't despair. God has died for you. You are valuable. You are precious to Him. He loves you no matter who you are and what you've done. Seek Him today, and He will help you overcome these unhealthy emotions. Remember, visit our website at hopetv.org/speakup. There you'll find our SpeakUp notes on shame and guilt and other resources. Share them with your friends. Share them with your family. And if you need someone to pray with you, call us at 1-888-446-7388. Also send us your comments. Maybe you want to share your story with us. We would love to hear from you on our Facebook page. We will see you next time to speak up on issues that matter for your whole health and your happiness.